Welcome back, everybody. So today I wanted to start a new series. I wanted to do some recipes in BeerSmith 3. Obviously, there's more than just BeerSmith 3, but I started out in BeerSmith 2, then upgraded to BeerSmith 3. I've been talking to a couple guys, and we've been looking at the Deschutes Fresh Squeezed IPA. On Deschutes' website, on a lot of their beers, you can go down and you can find the homebrew tab, and it will give you the malts, the hops, it will give you the starting gravity, the finish gravity, but it doesn't give you exactly how many pounds of two-row or how many pounds of maris otter. It just gives it to you as, here's the grains we use, figure it out. So I have not looked anything up, so go ahead and grab a beer. Let's see if we can come up with a recipe that will work for this fresh squeezed IPA. Welcome back, everybody. So as you can see, over here, we do have some information on the Deschutes website. Sorry, no hype, just sent me something. We do have the malts up here, so Pale, Crystal, and Munich. Hops are Citra, Mosaic, and Nugget. We do have the ABV, we have the IBUs. Also, down here, if you click on the homebrew tab, excuse me, we can come down here and get a little bit more information. So we know this is for a 5-gallon size. Original gravity is 1065 to 1075. Final gravity is 1015 to 1025. 90-minute boil. And we're going to use American ale yeast. Fermentation temperature, they're saying 65. I think you could play around with that a little bit if you wanted to. I don't believe, without looking at a whole bunch of clone recipes, that you're going to hit it exactly on your first time. And disclaimer, I have not looked anything up for this. This is my first time trying this, so I don't know what we're getting into here. So let's go ahead and go to BeerSmith 3. You will see my eyes moving. I have two screens, so I'm clicking on the other one to get something to pop up. So we are in BeerSmith 3. I would like to do an overview on BeerSmith 3, maybe what is different from BeerSmith 2, but for the most part, there's videos out there that will show that. So let's go ahead and start a new recipe. I do have some notes and stuff over here on my other screen, so you don't have to hear my mechanical keyboard click all the time. So brewer, I usually put Brad. For the type, obviously we are gonna go with all grain in this one. If you wanted to make the all grain, BeerSmith will convert it to extract, I'm pretty sure. Boil time, we're gonna go 90. My batch size is 5.5. That's what I use for every batch. Then my equipment is my Megapot 15-gallon. Now, when I did move from BeerSmith 2 to BeerSmith 3, I did have it import everything. So my old brew in the bag is in here, all that, which I really don't need now. But if you are going to upgrade, it will move everything over for you. So let's go ahead and just go back in here. Let's add our grain. So we know that they want 2-row. So let's see what we got. So depending on where you are, it's up to you what you use. Now, a Belgian 2-row is going to have a darker color. That's going to be an SRM of 3, where maybe the US is coming in at 2. So when we get to the color, you might be a little bit closer if you're not using a US 2-row. So we are going to use US 2-row or US 2-row. So we'll go ahead and just start with 10 pounds. I'm going to grab a drink. And so our next one that we know is Crystal. So let's put in Crystal. Obviously, we have a ton of crystals, 10, 20, 30. We'll go ahead and just go with 40 right now. We'll leave it at a pound. Again, we just want to build on this recipe, so let's click OK. And then we will put in our last one, which is Munich. And for Munich, I go with the first one because that's what my local homebrew store has. I do want to do another video also on how to add them. What I really want to do on this one, because the prices we'll kind of look at later on do not match what my store is. So I would almost just rather put them in there, put them all at the top, so that way I can just pick them. We'll keep Munich on a pound for now. So now we're going to have to change our style because we're not making an American Amber Ale. We want an IPA. We are going to do American IPA, so we'll hit OK. So just from what we have right now, our original gravity is 1057, and our color is an 8.5, and our estimated ABV is a 5.8. So we are low. If we do go back and look at the Deschutes site, our original gravity has to be 1065 to 1075. So we do know that we need to up some stuff and maybe take some stuff down. One thing, if you don't know, I would go look up grains and see what you're supposed to, what you can find that you should be doing with them. Because right now, I would say this Crystal 40, Crystal to me is like salt and pepper. You don't want to have too much. It's more of a seasoning for the beer. So 1 pound in a 5-gallon batch to me is way too much. So we can hit decrease and we'll put in 8 ounces, which would be half a pound. So that does bring our color down. Now I did look up the SRM for Deschutes Fresh Squeezed IPA. Most people say between like a 9 and an 11.5. If we look on the Deschutes site, it does not give us the color. And if you found it on here, let me know, but I do not see a color, so I'm going to say that it is not in here, or not on this page. So like I said, I did look up the color, so we want to be around a 9 to 11, let's say. And our ABV is still down, so I would say we need to add some more pale malt. Now we can just keep on hitting increase, or we can come in here. Let's try 12 pounds. So 12 pounds does get us to a 7.1. Color estimated is a 6.6. Now, if we remember correctly, we want a 6.4. So we do have to change some stuff. Munich, I think we're okay if we do decrease it. We can get down to our correct ABV, but that's also taking the color down along with it. And remember, we want to be in between a 9 and an 11. So I think on this crystal, we do need to substitute, and we need to, put in something darker. Let's go with a 80L on this one. So that does get us up to an 8.7. Estimated ABV is now 6.5. So we are kind of close with that. If we wanted to kick it up, I would say we would add some more Munich, and that gets us up to a 6.6 and an SRM of 8.9. What happens if we substitute this crystal again for 120? So our SRM does jump up to a 10.6 with half a pound and 6.6. Let's see if we decrease this to 0.4. That gets us to an 8. We could play around with this a lot just to see, but yeah, we're gonna overshoot our ABV. So I think I want to keep that at 1 Then if we go back up, I would say somewhere in there, half a pound in 13 and a half pounds of grain. That's probably okay. That's probably where I should start. But let's go ahead and add in our hops. Now we know this is a 90-minute, so when we add our hops, we have to think about where should they be used. Now, if you're not sure what kind of hops or what hops do, you should look them up. So you should look up Citra, Mosaic, and Nugget. Now on this, I do know what they all do. Your Citra and your Mosaic is aroma flavor, and your Nugget is your bittering. So we are going to want to start out with Nugget. So let's go ahead and search Nugget. We'll go ahead and do 1 pound, and let's just set this to 90 for right now. So there we go. We're up to 58.2 IBUs. And since we know Citra and Mosaic are aroma and flavor, I would say they're going to be used at the end of the boil. If we look at the website, what they say is a heavy helping of Citra and Mosaic hops. I don't know if this is misleading, but just using BeerSmith, going by what we have, if we said, let's go ahead and put Citra in here. We'll do a pound. We'll do it with 10 minutes left. So now we're at 69. And then if we add Mosaic, and we'll do that with 5 minutes left. And I thought I just saw it. Where did... I must have been seeing things. I thought it said flavor. I must have been seeing things. So right now we're at 78.1, and if we go back and check, we want to be at 60. So we are high right now, so we can play around with it. I'm not 100% sure how accurate BeerSmith is. I've played with it a little bit. I guess I just don't know because I never tested it. So we got Nugget, excuse me, at 90 minutes. We can go in and change that to 60 minutes. Now, I don't know how well you guys can see this, but right now with a 90-minute addition of 1 ounce of Nugget, our bitterness is 80 or 78.1, and if we click OK, it does not change. So it's utilizing all the bitterness in there between that 60 and that 90. So it's really not going to do any good that I know of. Again, I haven't tested a lot of this, so if you have, let me know. But to me, 90-minute boil and 60-minute boil, adding the hops at 90 minutes isn't going to affect anything, so you might as well add them at 60. So if we move that to 60, as you can see, we are still a little bit high. So I would say, since it's fresh squeezed IPA, that Citra is the dry hop. So if we go in here, we can say dry hop and hit OK. And now we're down to 67.4. And if we look here, we do want 60. So with the Mosaic, could we drop it down to, say, Whirlpool? I don't want to do that. Let's say boil. Let's try 1 minute. So that didn't change. So obviously going from 5 to 1 isn't going to change it. So it's up to you if you really want to hit that. To me, because it's a homebrewed beer, I would stick with something like this. And I might actually up this to 2 ounces, 20 ounces, 2 ounces, because usually, and I know there's debate about this, but because you're not boiling the hops, you're not getting bitterness if you do a dry hop. That's why our IBUs did not change. I think because they're saying a full blast of aroma, that they are using more than 1 ounce. So for the Citra, I would go 2, and you can play around with this. We could put 2 ounces here. That does change it. But what happens if we change this to 0.5? That gets us down to 47. See, so now we have more that we could play with. It really depends on how far you want to go with this. Because now what we could do is come back in here and put Mosaic 1 ounce in at 15 minutes. And see what that did. So that gets us to 62. So obviously you're going to have to think, might have to make this a couple times to really get it in, taste your homebrew versus the craft version just to see. So I think on this, I would take this down to 1 ounce and put it back to 5 minutes of the boil. And that gets us down to 52.9. So technically we could up this again, just see what we get. That puts us up to 82. So there's a lot of stuff to play around with. You know, you could say 0.75, and that gets us down to 67.4. When I try and do it, I do try and use all my hops. I don't like to close them back up and save them if you're buying the 1 ounce packages. If you're buying them, you know, in 16 ounces at a time or whatever, okay. But because I'm buying, because I'm buying them mainly 1 ounce at a time or 1 ounce packages, I try and use the whole thing. I do think this Mosaic at 15 and 5 is probably overkill. I would probably take the 15 out and then push the nugget up to 1, and that gets us to the 67.5. Then probably what I would do is add another hop, and I would do Mosaic 1 ounce, and I would do dry hop. And for the Citra, I would probably leave it. I like Citra. That's probably what I would do. So if we look at this, our original gravity is 1064. Our bitterness is 67.4. Our color is 10.5. And our estimated ABV is 6.6. Now, this is all going to depend on your system. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know on my system I have a boil off of over a gallon per hour. So even though my pre-boil volume says 7.23, I'm probably going to use 8 gallons of water in this one. Now, we also have to add our Warflock and our yeast. So for yeast, it calls for an American ale. Bell's, my homebrew, has White Lab, so WLP, I think it's 060, right? Yes, okay. So for that, for a starter, I would come in here. We're going to do a 1 liter starter. We are going to use a stir plate. Now you can do this without, and the cool thing with BeerSmith, if you pick stir plate, it will add how many yeast cells. I don't know how accurate it is. I haven't tested it. It always works. I don't really care how many cells are there as long as it finishes my beer. So without a stir plate, we're at about 150 billion. If we do use a stir plate, we jump up to 130, let's say 8 billion. So we'll keep that. Also, our mash temps. This is something that you could kind of play with if you want. If you've had the beer before, this might be a little bit easier. Obviously, the lower the mash temperature, that we go with, the lighter body and probably the higher ABV we're going to get. When you go with a lower mash in, it's going to give you more simple sugars, so those yeast are going to eat more. The higher the mash temperature, you're going to get a heavier body and maybe more sweetness. Now, it depends on what you're doing. That's why I say maybe. So, and I will be doing a video on this too. If you've been using BeerSmith and you don't play around with your mash temps, mine are going to look different than yours. I actually go in and add profiles for all the different mash temperatures to get them to be what I want. So on this one, I would go with a medium. I would go 152. And that would be for 60 minutes. Now this is a 90-minute boil, so if we go look, do I have a 152 for 90? Yes, I do. So here's my 90-minute 152. It was probably for a porter or a stout, but I didn't add it. So we will pick that. And we should be good there. So now if we go back to our design, we see pretty much nothing has changed. That's fine. We can't really tell, and I don't know if this was clear in BeerSmith too, but this is more like a picture color now. If we look at this, I don't know how, I wish they would make it almost real, coat it to maybe bring in some beers or say like this beer or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool instead of this generic picture that really shows like a caramel color. But whatever. So I leave my efficiency at 72. I don't really care about it. It is home brewing. I can make this again the next day. So could you. So I think that's where I would leave it. We could, for carbonation, corn sugar, we are going to keg this. Fermentation, 2-stage, we will use a 1. It's only going to be in there 2-3 weeks. No sense to transfer it just to put a couple ounces of dry hop. Leave it in there. The yeast isn't going to go bad. Leave it in one thing. The only thing you should be using a 2-stage on is a stout or a porter that you're going to put cocoa nibs or something in there for a long period of time. Anything else, leave it in there. Even for my raspberry, I do not, well, I do transfer it. Okay, never mind. That's different. If you're going to add fruit, yes, get it off the yeast. But I hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any comments. I am going to brew this. So this is what recipe I will go by. I will buy a bottle once it's ready. But let me know if you have any questions. Also, let me know if you want to see anything in BeerSmith 3. Water profile, I don't know a lot about. I don't use it. I put some gypsum in my water and that's it. It turns out fine. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Mash, I do use. Starter, I do use. We will go over some of my, let's say, after brew day where I do update some of these recipes. BeerSmith does give you the option on like hop. So if your alpha, your beta is different than what BeerSmith is calling for, you can, man, you can put that in there and it will save that for you in that recipe. We can put notes in there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think and what software do you guys use. So thank you for joining me, and until next time, happy brewing. If you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and thumbs up and check out some of our other videos.